Hello everybody, we are in Chicago today, downtown Chicago on the near north side, and I'm on a street called Augusta Boulevard. It used to be called Augusta Street, and this is the location where a young woman lived named Wanda Stopa. Back in 1924, she committed murder, and what's interesting about this location, of course, is where she lived. There were two famous pictures taken here, and I am going to show you where the pictures were taken from, actually. And let's start with this building right here. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but the building with the pointed roof there, and I'm going to try and zoom in. That window right on top that you see there was the place where they shot this image that I'm going to show you of what appeared to be about 10,000 people amassed for her funeral. It was a media frenzy. If you see this building right here, this tall one with that coping on top that sticks up, it looks like it's limestone, and that was her house, and this is where that picture was taken. So we're gonna head off to the cemetery right now. It is at the Bohemian National Cemetery. We'll head over there right now and I'll tell you the whole story. Okay, we're on the far north side of Chicago. Here on the right is the Montrose Cemetery. That's where we visited Iva Tuguri. I'll put a link up, Tokyo Rose. And here on the left is the Bohemian National Cemetery. This was actually my first video that I ever did back in July, 7 months ago, when I started this channel. And I was mainly interested in finding a little girl, a little 4-year-old girl, almost turning 5, that was kidnapped and murdered, named Elsie Perubek. Eliska Perubek was her Czech name. Here we are, through the gates, and we are in again. We are near the location of Wanda's grave. Wanda was an amazing woman for her short life. This was back in the early 1900s when everything climaxed, mid-1920s, 1924. She was a beautiful, beautiful woman who was very smart, very ambitious, very charming. She grew up actually in Poland. She was born in Poland, in Warsaw. Let's walk over and I'll tell you the story. We'll walk towards her grave. Her family were immigrants and they came to Chicago and they lived in the Polish section of town on the near north side that we saw. She actually passed the bar. She was one of the first women who passed the state of Illinois bar to become an attorney, so that tells you something about her. But being a woman, gender really worked against you back then. Of course, very, very tough to get ahead, but that did not stop her, because in 1922, she became the youngest and first woman assistant state's attorney. It's very impressive. Now, she was looking for a distraction. She was getting bored, so she embraced what they called the bohemian style of lifestyle. And that meant, it was kind of like the Flappers, but maybe in a more extreme way. Living without rules, plenty of drugs, alcohol, free sex, kind of like the hippies. Wanda met and fell for this fellow bohemian. His name was Y. Kenley Smith. He was an advertising executive, and he was about 20 years older than her. And of course, he was intelligent, he was artistic, but he was also married. Wanda was actually married when she met him. She had spontaneously married a Russian count, Zdzislaw Glasgow. They called him Ted. But she initiated and continued this affair with Smith. She wanted him all for herself. And she was pleading with him, please, leave your wife, come with me. And he was a pretty manipulative guy, because what he did was he conned her along and coaxed her and said, yeah, let's keep this going. And what he did is he got her, he secreted her away to New York. And he was paying her monthly expenses. And it was all cozy, it was all going well. But then all of a sudden, the money stopped. Well, she didn't like that. And she pleaded with him to leave his wife, and he wouldn't. He said, no, I'm not going to leave my wife. It's not going to happen. So after the money train stopped and the jealousy was at its maximum, Wanda decided to come to Chicago by train to have a little discussion with the family. And she was packing a gun. She stepped off the train on April 23rd, 1924, and she had taken a taxi from the train station. Just so happened the taxi driver was a guy named Wood who was half deaf. That'll come into play later. She goes to the house and she barges into the house where she found Smith's wife in bed with the flu. Her nickname was Doodles. So she finds Doodles in bed, and she has this whole conversation like, I want you to leave your husband. And Doodles is like, no, I'm not going to leave my husband. And Wanda says, well, what am I supposed to do? And Doodles says, you're a lawyer. Go practice law. Oh, that was the wrong thing to say. Out came the 38. Out came the 38. And what happened was she was about to shoot Doodles in bed when Henry Manning, the gardener, I think he was 68, he jumps out trying to coax Wanda, of course, to talk her out of it. And she promptly shoots him and kills him. Now, Doodles wasn't waiting around. While all that was happening, she jumps out of bed and she dives out the window. As Wanda is shooting wildly, I think she got 2 shots off at her, and escapes. Wanda goes back to the taxi cab, and Mr. Wood is hanging out, has no idea what's going on. Of course, he didn't hear the shots because he can't hear a thing. And she goes back to the train station. Wanda ends up getting as far as the Detroit area, I think it was. She checks into a hotel there. And it was the next day where she had sent her mom a telegram or a letter with money and cashier's check. And the hotel clerk up front sees the letter and recognizes her last name. Here is Wanda's grave, right here. So he calls the management, and I think the police were on their way, and they descend upon the room, and they burst in as Wanda was swallowing arsenic, a vial. And they said that she just smiled at them as she took her last breath. And that was the end of that. Now, we're here at her grave, and this is where it gets interesting, because you saw the picture. I mean, it was a media frenzy. The media went absolutely wild. 10,000 people showed up. And they all came right here. They all came, a lot of morbid stuff. And the media. So they're sitting here. Wanda's mom is like right over here. And a little child starts talking in the silence as they were doing a prayer. And Henry's brother was adjacent, and he slaps the kid in the face. Now, the mother obviously took offense to it, and they started a little verbal tussle. And Wanda's mom completely lost her nerves, jumps up and bops this woman 3 times in the face, breaking her glasses. So, a big scene here at the cemetery. But I thought it's not funny, but I thought there was a funny part was, after all of that, the cemetery manager was keeping vigil on all this, steps up, puts his arm up, and says, "Everybody, it's over." And it was over. And everybody went home. So that is the tale. That is the tale of Wanda Stopa. We hope that Wanda is resting in peace. We hope her mother is resting in peace. We hope the whole family is resting in peace. And with that, we'll catch you on the next one, gang.